freeze dryer preserves a lot of the nutrients, the highest level. In fact, it's close to 97%. You just lose certain amounts of moisture through the water in it. You can actually freeze dry your own eggs, and just by adding water to your skillet with your freeze dried egg powder, now you have fresh eggs. And we saw the egg prices earlier this year go up, skyrocketing.
It's got to be some hardcore freeze dryer. I'm not buying it.
Okay. Well, we'll see.
It's fun meeting you in person. You're not a local. I've only interviewed people that are from Boulder so far, and you're in Boise, Idaho.
Yeah. I lived there pretty much my whole life. Parents moved us up there from Texas, and lived there my entire life. I like it because it's kind of like Boulder, where you have pretty much all 4 seasons. You have the mountains where you can recreate in the summer, springtime, wintertime. You have kind of more of a small town-ish feel. We don't have a whole lot of crime in Boise, and it's just a very safe place to raise a family. It's getting way more expensive than what I was used to when I was getting out of college and kind of seeing, the landscape of what adulthood looks like with house buying. But yeah, Boise is a great place.
So the stars kind of aligned in our connection. I know you through YouTube and your social media. You put out a lot of content around freeze drying, and you help bring education and awareness to this whole space. How did that start for you? How did you find yourself first becoming aware of freeze drying and then being wanting to be a voice of the industry?
Yeah, origin story is, I think the pandemic in 2020, when that started hitting the United States, it really made some things bad for people in business, and other times it brought opportunities. And for me, it brought opportunities through some unfortunate events. My wife ended up losing her job temporarily in the healthcare industry, and it was really unexpected. We thought that her career is more of a secure job. So I've been in kind of side hustle, gig job realms my entire career. And so I had a buddy who is a firefighter, and some of the coworkers that he works with are kind of like homesteader prepper people out more in the country, in more west, kind of closer to the Oregon border in Idaho. And they had some freeze dryers that they were prepping some food. And he said, "Hey, have you explored?" We were working out, and he said, "Hey, have you explored freeze drying?" And I was like, "I don't even know what that is, other than what's at a museum." He said, "Well, people are selling freeze dried candy, fruit, all types of stuff on Etsy." And so I said, "Well, this might be a good opportunity." But I actually bought some freeze dried stuff, freeze dried candy, ice cream, fruit from a company in Utah. In fact, it was Susie's Pantry, of all places. I think she's still running hot today.
Shout out Susie's Pantry.
Susie's Pantry, yeah. And I got it shipped to me, and I was like, man, the packaging looks great. It tastes like a new texture. All this stuff was new to me. Then I saw the price point, and I was like, man, we could do this. I mean, the freeze dryer is $3,500, $4,000. If we buy one of these collectively between my friend and I, the first goal is, let's just pay it back. And so we launched around kind of an ideal time. It was Black Friday to like Thanksgiving. We set up an Instagram with my digital background. Basically, we had the name, we had the website, we had it set up through Shopify and e-commerce, and we ended up doubling our investment in the business. And so that kind of catapulted us buying a bunch of Harvest Right freeze dryers. We had 7 up until our first year. Then it got really overwhelming. And so we ended up downsizing. My friend ended up leaving the company. I had about a 4 or 5 month hiatus, and I decided to start shooting some video, doing a POV of my my freeze drying business. So I had a commercial kitchen. I knew kind of the ropes that you have to go through when starting a freeze drying business in the cottage food side. That means more at home, if you're not familiar with that. And then going to a commercial kitchen, you're actually going through a little bit more regulatory things with food safety. So you have to have certain sanitary things, but it's all different with different states. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll just give education on what I'm doing, and maybe that'll help inspire people. Come today, June 2025, I've got 35,000 subscribers through my YouTube channel. Everybody's focused on my content's focused on the business side of freeze drying. And that's why we're here today.
So moving from your kitchen into a commercial kitchen. Are you still in a commercial kitchen?
I am in a transitionary period. Actually, I was in a commercial kitchen that I rented, and it was a really fortunate opportunity. I was in a commercial kitchen that was licensed through our Central District Health through a bar. Actually, they weren't using it for food, and they needed some to supplement some income, and so I rented that and placed my freeze dryers there. It's very low maintenance, noise. I'm doing fruit, candy, ice cream, so it's not a whole lot of just catering type of craziness of food processing. So it really worked out there. And unfortunately, the bar sold to another company that now wants the restaurant side of things. So I'm kind of in this transition period right now.
Where do people get you try your products?
I sell online, so
Mhm.
I sell my company's Freeze Dried Depot. I thought of that name because I wanted to be the depot or the location for freeze dried products. And so I sell online, I sell through my website and common marketplaces like Etsy. And then I also venture into some little bit of wholesale. So as long as you're in a commercial kitchen, you can sell through wholesale. So right now I'm kind of in this like limbo mode where I've talked to my Central District Health and like the health professionals and they know kind of where I'm at. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now.
So, and you are also you are very involved in the freeze drying space, and very grateful for all the voice that you're giving to freeze drying. A lot of people don't know what freeze drying is. How do you like to describe freeze drying to people?
I would describe freeze drying as a way to preserve food for longer storage than canning, dehydration, freezing something in your freezer. But for the common person, freeze drying has really opened the door for new ways to snack on something because a freeze dryer preserves a lot of the nutrients, the highest level. In fact, it's close to 97%. You just lose certain amounts of moisture through the water in it. But freeze drying can give a new taste, texture. It can be applied in different ways. People use it a lot for things that can spoil really quickly, especially if you're using it for home. Because in a home freeze dryer, if you have chickens, if you're on a small farm and you have goats or you butcher a cow, whatever you're doing, you can actually freeze dry your own eggs. And just by adding water to your skillet with your freeze dried egg powder, now you have fresh eggs. And we saw the egg prices earlier this year go up, skyrocketing. And also, those are a lot of like very high processed type of eggs. So if you're able to get your own eggs and freeze dry that, it really opens up the door for freeze drying for homeowners.
Do you have any type of uh, prepper mentality around this? Do you have a bunch of freeze dried food at home for maybe it's for backpacking camping, but also in case, hey, you need food for a couple months?
Well, it's funny you asked that. I don't actually. I am not a prepper person.
The freeze drying has turned me into a huge prepper. I loved practicing with all types of different meals. I love R&D, and I have so much just cases and cases of food. Don't come try to get some from me though, if something goes bad. But I've got a lot.
Well, I like R&D. I like discovering like whether something can be freeze dried. We've talked about that in our discussions, but there's a lot of things that you can experiment with. But once something's freeze dried, you have a lot of ways to also experiment with the post effect of that. It's not just a dried product. So something that my kids, I've got small kids under the age of 5, 2 boys, very hungry boys, but they really love fruit. Well, if they don't eat that fruit within 2 to 3 days, it can spoil if you're not buying it at the right time. And so what we do is we freeze dry a lot of the fruits and either we put it in the snacks to their daycare so that they don't have to have an ice pack. They don't have to have anything like a cooler. It's very easy for them to snack on. Second thing we do is we actually grind that up into a powder and we put it into flavoring any type of baked goods. So if we're having oatmeal, if we're having grits, anything like that, we put that powder into our oatmeal and things, and it kind of gives them both their berries for the day, but it also kind of flavors things up. We've used it in baking like blueberry muffins, but it's not actually a blueberry; it's just the powder. So it's really opened up the doors for this And that's how we use freeze drying at home.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's podcast, B Micro, the easiest way to sneak vegetables into any meal. Due to soil depletion, GMOs, and monocropping, Americans are not getting enough nutrients. So in 2018, I founded B Micro, the first freeze-dried microgreens company in the US to help Americans get more concentrated natural nutrients into their diet. Microgreens are a phase in the plant's life when they're 14 days old and naturally the most concentrated in vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all the good things that we need. Our microgreens are grown here in the US in soil in a greenhouse. They're certified USDA organic and regenerative organic. We grow, wash, and freeze dry them to extend their 1-week shelf life to over 1 year, allowing us to ship anywhere in the US without the worry of spoilage. We have 2 flavors, broccoli, backed by over 2,000 studies on sulforaphane and its powerful detox benefits, and a blend of red cabbage, radish, and broccoli, the most potent detox formula we've tested, offering you the most bang for your buck. Easily sneak these microgreens in any meal. Eggs, smoothies, pizza, pasta, even your kids' mac and cheese, you can't even taste it. Use code STEVE15 to save at bmicro.farm. One of my favorite use cases for freeze drying is seasonal fruits and vegetables. In Colorado, we've got Palisade peaches. I don't know if you've had those before. They're a bit of a famous, very sweet, really juicy, just unbelievable peach. That's one of my favorite things to consume freeze dried. Give to anyone. I've powdered it, made it as just like chips, and everyone. It's a major wow factor.
Yeah. What do you feel like as you've experimented with different types of fruits, there's some that you're drawn to freeze dry all the time and you're like, I don't want those other ones that I did?
Yeah, I'd say the one that I don't like as much is like a banana. I feel like that's really chalky, and it's maybe depends on how thinly you slice it. A banana for me is probably on the lower end of interest. There's a wide variety of apples. Some apples aren't that great fresh, but apples are pretty good. The more unique it is, like as you get into like a kiwi or into some things are challenging to freeze dry as well. Like a watermelon, there's a ton of water in that. You got to cut that really thin. But for me, local, just seasonal produce, the peaches is number one for me.
Yeah. And there's a limited window for you to buy those, I'm sure, right? So you're kind of like, I can now keep those for several months, or you can keep them for longer, however you want to store it.
And you can buy seconds. So like imperfect produce, ones that have little blemishes or just don't look as good, for typically like half the price. And so that's what I'll do. I work a lot of farmers markets, and I'm friends with many of the farmers, and I'll get their seconds, their just leftovers, and it all looks the same once it's turned into a powder.
Yeah. Yeah. I met somebody who freeze dries dragon fruit because they have a cousin that is down in more Central America. And so it's really expensive to get a dragon fruit here. But the dragon fruit, like where I buy in my local town for Boise, Idaho, it's, it could be $3 per dragon fruit. But I know somebody who sources them because he has a cousin that has a farm down in like Nicaragua or Honduras, and he exports those here and gets a good price on it, and that's what he sells.
I've invested in other natural products companies, and there's other companies that I'm looking to stand up. One of them is a freeze dried company down in South America, in Colombia. I've got a very close friend down there, and there's some jungle fruits. And part of the figuring out though is how do we even get freeze dryers down there? I've got a bunch of freeze dryers that I'm ready to ship down. It sounds like your friend has sent some freeze dryers down there, or they have access to them already.
Yeah, there's a couple of home freeze dryers that I figured out how to. At least I get some type of distributor that is exporting those. I know Harvest Right is exporting those because I know people who all across Europe did it through my channel that I've got. I've been connecting and networking with different people. Australia is one that they're getting those Harvest Rights in. So Harvest Right's definitely getting more worldwide in terms of getting freeze dryers in the hands of them. Stay Fresh, though, I've heard is a new freeze dryer company. They've been around for probably, I would say 2 to 3 years. I actually own one of them, but I've seen they actually the colleague that I've got down there in Central America, they've got a Stay Fresh and a Harvest Right.
And Harvest Right is shipping it to them
Yeah.
direct. Oh,
Mhm.
wow. Yeah. So I have a bunch of used freeze dryers. I've already paid for. They're already good to go. I'm just going to send those down. I'm not sure yet. I haven't connected all those dots, but it'll be a bit of a experimentation of there's just so much fruit that's just falling from the trees and around some of these people's properties, like these fruit forests, food forests, and they're just rotting on the ground. What if we capture those and turn them into some type of a powder, sell them back into the U.S., create some good jobs, create a clean product, a new product, and yeah, I would love. I'm very interested in expanding into South America in that way.
Yeah, one of the challenges that I know is in South America is the energy because there's a lot of power that a freeze dryer draws, especially if you're trying to go more high production. And they have so much tropical fruits that they can freeze dry. And those types of fruits are longer cycle, is what we call them in freeze drying terms. It's like a longer cycle, 24 to 48 hours, because it's just extracting a lot of water from fruits. So a lot of the power consumption is a challenge for them down there because they just don't have the same infrastructure that the U.S. or Europe does. So that's one of those things that they're trying to figure out down there.
That's a great point. That's probably one of the biggest drawbacks to freeze drying is how much power is required. A lot of people, what I do is I pre-freeze it for 24 to 48 hours, and then I put it in the freeze dryer. That usually speeds it up by at least 8 hours. But yeah, depending on how much liquid is in whatever you're trying to freeze dry, it could be anywhere from 20 to 40 hours of freeze drying.
Yeah. Yeah. For a home freeze dryer, a typical charge, I mean, just depends on where you live. I mean, I know high energy costs are California, Washington State, at least from what I have heard and know. But in Boise, Idaho, it for me to run 10 pounds of strawberries is going to cost me $4 to $6.
Yeah, same here.
And that's a cheap price to pay to get basically all of your fruit preserved that could go to waste in about 5 to 7 days.
What are some other use cases for freeze drying that you're seeing? Where is innovation happening around freeze drying? Maybe in terms of the processing, if anybody is doing some type of light dehydration before, or air drying, or in that way, or is it around the produce or the products or the manufacturing? Where are you seeing innovation? What's getting you excited about freeze drying today?
Yeah, great question. I think freeze drying is evolving into people looking at a couple different areas. Either one, you already have an existing like fresh product that you sell and you want to use freeze drying or you want to explore that processing drying method to see if the same flavor and taste of your current product is applicable and you can add that new SKU.
And many times it is.
Exactly. So, for example, chia pudding is one that I've been seeing a lot of because right now, you can buy it in a packet, but it has to be refrigerated, all of that. You freeze dry that and it doesn't bubble up that much, becomes kind of crunchy. You can rehydrate it, meaning you can pour water back into it at a certain density and then you get the same consistency. So there's a lot of applications that I'm seeing that companies are just interested in seeing if freeze drying can add another SKU that opens up another door for that. The other avenue is powderizate, like freeze dried powders, which is something that you do with the microgreens. It's looking at something that is probably not. Maybe it doesn't taste as I would say not taste, but
It's not
maybe
as fresh.
maybe you're looking at yeah, not as fresh, or maybe you're actually. I'm seeing people who want a high concentration of the nutrition in not so big of a plate. So you think about, broccoli, you're like, how do I get my kids to eat broccoli and leafy greens? Because they need that to grow. I struggle with my two boys. Well, you look at freeze dried microgreen powder, look at freeze dried any type of powder, beet powder, you just sprinkle that on a grilled cheese that you're already going to layer on some bread. They're never going to see that, but all of a sudden they could get their whole day's serving of beets because it's in a powder form. So that's another application. Speaking of powders, Nutraceuticals is a huge avenue as well, because now you can get a very concentrated amount of that particular mushrooms, beets. All I'm not actually very familiar with the nutraceutical industry, but that's what I'm seeing in innovation is freeze drying takes the water out of a product and it gives you a dried out product. And then it's your decision on how you want to store that or apply it uh, to that. And that you can't really do that with other methods. So,
Where do you see people really winning in the freeze dried space today? What categories, what types of products are really starting to take off?
yeah, I think pet treats is and pet food is a huge industry just because pets are becoming a lot more ingrained in our daily lives. We care about them a lot more than the past. There's a lot more laws, that are being passed to favor protecting our animals. There's insurance. I mean, there's all types of stuff that we're seeing revolve around our pets. And so having your pet eat raw meats and proteins and things like that is a huge avenue, but you got to be able to store that. So buying, fresh liver, you only can store that in the refrigerator for so long. Also, you can only freeze it for so long. And also, if you don't monitor that, it can get freezer burn, and then you could actually have that meat spoil.
Do you
So
ever supplement with liver yourself?
I have not, no, but I eat it. I eat it cooked. My mother-in-law makes a great liver and onions recipe for dinner.
So I was telling you before this, we went to the Boulder Farmers Market. We were introducing you to some of my friends, some of their businesses. But one business, Golden Hoof, that wasn't there is where I buy all of my meat. I shared with you. I really only try to buy meat from there because I think other meat, these animals have lived angsty lives, and
Hmm.
that angst, that scared depression, whatever, is in their flesh, is in the meat, and that gets into us. I've felt that, and this is new to me, but I'll buy frozen liver from them. I'll defrost it and I'll cube it into sizes that I could just small enough that I could swallow, like almost like
Mm.
just like the size of a couple of capsules. And then I will put parchment paper in a glass Tupperware, and I'll layer these cubed bits of liver cubes. And then every day I'll take 2, 3 of those cubes out of the freezer, let them defrost for an hour, and I'll just pop those. And that is the one supplement that I feel the most. It's energizing, it's uplifting. Um, I think I must have been deficient in it. I'm not vegetarian, but I just straight liver. You cannot chew it. It's unchewable. You have to just swallow it. But I really feel it.
Huh. I don't know much about liver. I mean, is there anything else you can tell me about why liver is good for us?
Liver is thought of as the most nutrient dense part of the animal. When wolves take down an elk or a deer or something like that, the alpha wolf gets to eat first, the leader of the pack. And from my understanding, he always eats the liver first
Hmm.
because there's so much nutrients in it. There's a lot of iron. A lot of us are deficient in iron. There are a lot of freeze dried liver companies out there. A friend that I helped R&D locally here, Tribe Vitamins, Daniel Eisman, he offers a great product, and you do have to, and you could travel with it and you could ship it, and it's really great. But it's a lot of capsules. You got to have like 6, 7 capsules. There's no beating fresh. Same for microgreens. You can't. The fresh anything is the best, but a lot of times people don't have access to the fresh things, or they go bad, and it's like, oh shoot, I bought $20 worth of microgreens. I only got to eat 10 of it, and every day that after harvest, it's losing 20+% of its nutrients through dehydration, through things just burning off. It's still a living thing. It's consuming itself.
Hmm.
So when we do the microgreens, we grow, wash, and freeze dry it all the same day. Or we're freezing it the same day. We freeze it for about 2 days, and then we put it in the freeze dryer. But the liver is thought of as the most nutrient dense part of the animal.
Fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense why freeze drying liver is a huge avenue. And I would say in the pet treat side, it's just general proteins, freeze drying all those proteins. And I feel like what's coming and what's the opportunity in freeze drying, you asked. Pet treats is a sector. But when you think about, are a lot of people freeze drying pet treats and pet food? Yes, there's a lot of competitors. Chewy's is one of the, or Estella and Chewy's is one of the biggest brands out there. But people that we just went to in the farmers market, I mean, sometimes a lot of people are caring about, I actually know that farm. I actually know where those cattle are raised. I actually know where they're producing that. And that matters more to me than going to even a local natural retail store and getting from somebody in a different state. People care about that. So the opportunities out there, you kind of have to just figure out what's your passion. Where do you want to go? If you just want to sell at the farmers market and and make money in that as a side hustle, or you want to make it as a full business, but you want to sell local and be known as that, then that's where you need to market your product, and that's the opportunity. And can you focus on kids? Can you focus on pets? Can you focus on the homeless food banks? How can you help the community get their nutrient deficient areas in their diet through a preservation method like freeze drying, where a lot of things go to waste?
I'm enjoying kind of like riffing on some business ideas with you. Another idea, I had the mayor, Aaron Brockett, in here a few days ago, and he said the number one problem that he faces and Boulder faces is homelessness. And it's mostly because of, I don't know the politically correct term, but like mental disorder, ailment, and then substance abuse. And I don't know what nutrition looks like for these people. And a thought, then I also had the market director for Boulder County Farmers Market, like basically like the president, CEO of it. And I was like, hey, how can we capture some of this waste that's happening either at the farm
Yes.
or at the farmers market and is being captured fresh and being given to food banks? But that's only part of the year. What if we took some of that and we freeze dried it and we turn that into like a powder that we can then pass out like for like soups, like it's a nutrient. It's like
Hmm.
how do we capture this waste and turn it into something that really helps people?
Yeah, imagine a world where freeze drying is used for the greater humanity of food waste, especially in the US. It's like close to 40% per household waste food. I think of my own habits too. It's my kids sometimes don't eat what they want. And where does it go? It goes in the trash. You think about all the things that you don't know how to cut properly, produce, anything like that, and you're wasting some of the skin. You're wasting all those things just because most of the common person just doesn't know how to utilize all those different pieces. And so if we were more educated on how to use those, then we'd be more efficient in knowing how to reduce waste. I see a world where freeze drying helps the greater good in helping with food waste and nutrient, helping those in need get their nutrients. So,
And it's not our fault that we're not getting enough nutrients for the most part. It's food has about a quarter of the amount of nutrients, our fruit and vegetables, that it did have just 80 years ago. So you have to eat 4 apples today to get the same nutrients of 1 apple from 80 years ago. So
mhm.
that's why it's because of soil depletion. It's because of GMOs. It's because they're being shipped from the other side of the world. And just as we said, these produce are consuming themselves. They're eating the vitamins and minerals along the process to stay alive.
Yeah, this is where I think municipalities in our state, local, and federal governments could really help out. And I see it happening in freeze drying. This is why I'm so passionate about not just starting a business to make money, but I'm working as a part of my freeze dried summit, which is the first ever freeze drying specific conference ever in Boise, Idaho. It's coming out of September. One of the reasons I'm going to do this is I want to create a freeze drying association, and I don't really know what that looks like in the future, but I know what it's going to be meant for today. And that is to connect everyone that's doing freeze drying in a more unified way to help, like, the governments that we all are we have in our local and state and federal way, to understand what freeze drying is and what it could help in our society. So we talk about food waste. Let's just talk about that. If all of the homes that have freeze dryers, if you were given a uh, uh, some type of tax credit, just like when we donate clothes or we donate food to the food bank, if you were able to preserve some type amount of food waste that for example, grocery stores waste a lot of product because they don't look right, or there's a lot of farms that have all the pumpkins and they have all the watermelon out there in their fields, but they didn't get picked or they didn't have that demand. And you have that window of 3 to 5 days that you need to go and get those. Actually, you could freeze dry all that. So if we were better and as a city and a state to help as our association to help those laws get enacted to where we could actually have people freeze drying for reducing waste, then it kind of helps the greater good. That's where I see freeze drying going. Um, there's a company I think called Misfits Market, maybe, but they basically take the produce that doesn't look like right, that Walmart, Target, Albert, a lot of these Krogers, they want something that looks presentable, shiny.
Yeah, they want a carrot that is perfectly straight, an apple that's perfectly round. And if there's like a little bump in it, or it's just like, oh, that doesn't look the way that it looks in the movies, then they reject it.
Yeah.
But it's perfectly good and natural.
Yes, and for certain people, not everybody's focused and desires to have the purest types of foods, but it's transforming. So there's certain demographics though that are growing, and we're all kind of being more aware of what we're eating. And so all that stuff that's going to waste just because it doesn't look right is wrong. And we just need to educate our lawmakers on what this new technology in food preservation is, so that we can better our community. And another way that we could better our community is not just homelessness, but the food banks. They have strict laws on what they can actually accept in terms of food donations. It has to be canned. It can't be fresh, typically, which is a problem. Why can't we freeze dry fresh product that's already going to go to waste? And then if we package it up in a way that the association that I'm creating would enact to say, okay, if you want to donate to the food bank, this is how you need to package it up. And then it needs to be eaten within a year or 2 years. As long as we have those procedures and those regulations, we should be able to give fresh produce to the people that need it.
I think that's a state to state thing, because in Colorado, you can give fresh produce to the food bank. So maybe
I called Idaho. Yeah, I called my local area, and in terms of like dehydrated, all those types of things, dried out. Maybe it wasn't fresh, but it has to be
processed.
Yeah, but I mean, they waste food because people give it those fresh produce, and then it goes to waste as well.
This podcast is brought to you by B Micro, a company I'm deeply passionate about because I founded it in 2018. It's USDA organic freeze-dried microgreens for everyday nutrition and detox. Sprinkle them on any meal or take them as a capsule to enjoy the many healthy benefits. Shop now at bmicro.farm. Use code STEVE15 to save. How do you think about the cleanliness of these produce? Because people don't really seem to care how clean an apple is, or their fruits or vegetables. They're just like, I don't know how clean it is. If it's organic, it's probably definitely cleaner than not organic. What are your insights into how people are cleaning the produce before they freeze dry it?
Well, I do think it's different going to be somebody who's doing cottage food, because the cottage food laws for most states are designed for people to have an entry point into selling something that they are producing.
Yeah, it's less regulated. You can grow it. You can do it yourself in your own kitchen. They want you to you have to take a food safety class. It's like not a big deal. And then you could sell only up to like $10,000 or $20,000 per SKU per year, and only in your state. You can't sell it across state lines. You can't put it on Amazon. You can't really put it on a website. You can just sell it at your farmer's market and local retail.
Are you asking in terms of freeze drying or just in general?
I'm asking in terms of, so what we do is we grow the microgreens, then we wash the microgreens, and then we freeze them, and then freeze dry them, then package them, and fulfill orders. What are your insights around that washing step? Because it's not heavily regulated by the FDA, USDA. They come in when there's an E. coli outbreak. Then they're like, all right, let's see what's going on. But nobody is coming in to the kitchen. Maybe I had a kitchen for 5 years. Maybe once every 2 or 3 years, the state health department comes in and like, all right, let's walk us through your process. Let's see. Okay, you got gloves and you're using uh, stainless steel tables and you got the 3 sinks and like, okay, but no one's really talking about how are you washing the produce, and what if you're freeze drying unclean produce? Maybe something's on
Yeah.
it, some type of E. coli, bacteria, mold, salmonella, something weird's on it.
I think that's a great valid question. And I think it definitely can separate yourself from people who are freeze drying products that are taking really good care of how they're actually processing a process for that freeze dried product. I know from my standpoint, I'm a small commercial operator, so I just go by the laws that the Central District Health does, but for me, I've been educated a little bit about even just strawberries, like how many of the pesticides and things can get in those little seed point areas for those strawberries. So for me, I'm definitely doing a little bit more diligence in washing those strawberries. I think what trending has been happening with strawberries is like getting a bowl of clean water, pouring the strawberries in, putting some baking powder, baking soda in there, basically letting it sit for 5 or 10 minutes, and then you strain it, and then you see how like dirty the water is. So those are all different things that I've experimented with, but I think it separates itself from someone who's going to look at freeze drying, and I think it is a valid question, and I think it's something that we need to definitely be better at.
I think that could be a great point for your association to dive deeper into to help people figure out how to clean the product, not just have a clean space and a space that's also very easy to clean, so it stays clean, but how are you cleaning the fruits, the vegetables themselves? Because what I've seen in neighboring um, uh, uh, like products like sprouts. Sprouts are even younger than microgreens. Is there's been E. coli outbreaks because of the way they're grown. It's really hard to keep them clean. They're grown in like a mason jar. You've probably seen that. Microgreens are grown in soil typically or some type of hydroponic growing medium. But there's been outbreaks of E. coli that have caused harm to people and the industry itself. So now, like Jimmy John's, they don't carry any sprouts anymore. They had, I don't know, hundreds of locations and sprouts were going into every single location. Boom, done.
I
And
didn't know that.
yeah. And
They
so
got rid of those.
they got,
Well, I guess now I've kind of realized they don't have that sprouts anymore.
so that's my concern, not just for the microgreens industry, because there's people growing microgreens just in a second bedroom that maybe they've got a cat that's crawling around it. Maybe
Yeah.
that's old carpeting. Maybe it's who knows what's going on, and they're not testing for bad things because they're selling it fresh. But it's just so unregulated. Where the regulation comes in is when there is an outbreak. So what I would hate to see for the freeze drying industry is there's some type of an outbreak, freeze dried carrots, a bunch of people got sick and there's some big recall and there's a big problem. And then it's like, whoa, black eye for the freeze drying industry itself. I just strongly feel seeing this happen in sprouts that we got to get ahead on the cleanliness and helping educate people on how to just run a really clean operation and clean the produce itself. Um,
Yeah, I
you know,
agree. And there's a lot of new people that are getting into freeze drying that have never been in the food space, myself included. I just got into freeze drying by chance. We talked about that at the beginning here, but through doing that, I educated myself on like how do I manage and be food safe in my kitchen and things, and how do I go through those steps. So yeah, that's a great point. I'm going to note that for my association.
I'm interested in seeing what it would look like to support you in this association. I've worked towards starting a microgreens association to try to bring the hundreds, thousands of microgreens voices that aren't really being heard into one kind of voice so that we can then use that to lobby in a positive way, saying, hey, this represents $100 million worth of product and this many people and this and it's like this is why this matters. Help us. And I can see where I could support in that kind of a way with the freeze drying because I've done so much lab testing. I really understand the good and the bad side of the lab testing,
Hmm.
the costs around it, and the ways to do things in a clean way. I've, one way, and these things aren't required, unfortunately, but I've got a HACCP plan and I'm HACCP certified. So that's just like another level of cleanliness. I just think that is an overlooked. Everyone wants to be on the offensive, like marketing and just more, more, more. But it's like there also needs to be a little bit of a defensiveness as well, and making sure that everything's buttoned up so that people don't get sick. I mean, we're here to try to make people healthier. Maybe not the freeze dried candies are, but the fruits and the vegetables.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the association represents connecting the people that are in freeze drying and advocating for both the offensive and the defensive side of the industry. The offensive side would be getting more people on board to be pro the freeze drying method for the purposes that we discussed in terms of food waste, helping the homeless, the food deficient families in our community. And the second avenue would be the defensive side, where we're definitely helping to secure good food safety measures, because it is a fairly newer process for a lot of new people in the food industry to do. Just like somebody opening up a new restaurant, they get violations more than someone who's been in it for 20 years, because they just know those experienced professionals kind of know uh, how to go through those processes. But that's what I would say to the association.
Nice. Yeah. Let's keep it clean. Um, what Tell us more about this summit. Who is this? Who is this for?
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. It's a huge undertaking for me because I do content, I do my own freeze drying business and things like that for freeze drying. But what I found is that as I'm meeting all these entrepreneurs, including yourself, Stephen, that not everyone knows about everybody else. And also, when there's a lot of people coming in just trying to figure out if freeze drying is this new exciting opportunity for them, there's they want to be educated. They want to know like who's the who's who. They want to learn from experts, people that have done it. I mean, you've done freeze drying for half a decade, right? And
Mhm.
you've got experience knowing mistakes to avoid. Don't even go down that path, or yes, that's an opportunity. Avoid this, that type of thing. Same with me. And so the freeze drying summit brings together experts in the industry for technology, knowing how to freeze dry. It brings together manufacturers who had the freeze drying equipment, where if you have an actual product that you want to make in any type of volume, they are going to be able to help educate you on what's actually necessary for a facility, for food safety, whether a co-packer makes sense or buying it on their own. How do you get the capital investment for it? And I would say also, it's just an opportunity for all of us to connect and be like, hey, there's somebody freeze drying microgreens. There's somebody freeze drying chicken livers. So there's somebody freeze drying pet food. I met somebody who's freeze drying mushrooms today at the farmer's market, and he's powderizing it. And, he was familiar with that. So that's why I'm starting the freeze dried summit, so that people can be more connected in this very niche industry.
Where does your passion kind of stem from today? I'm hearing you talk about sustainability and helping bring more nutrients into people's lives and bringing people together around this really emerging new technology. Where would you say your passion is?
I'm passionate about the entrepreneur side of things. The United States is heavily supportive of small businesses. That's how people stay employed. That's how people find opportunities when they've been laid off by larger corporations. They find their passions through small business. So my desire is that I'm helping to support people who want to get into the business ownership or entrepreneur, meaning innovative, changing something about food innovation through freeze drying.
And part of your story is creating content and becoming an influence within our space of freeze drying. How has that content creation affected, um, impacted your business, and how do you look at content creation?
Yeah, well, it's probably reduced my actual business efforts because I'm so busy trying to focus on what I can help people with, that my content has consumed my time. And so I use my business as a means to still stay active in what freeze drying is and exploring different things so I can show people what I'm learning and testing different equipment. And I'm also, as a content creator, it's helped me become a better public speaker, articulate things in a more way that people can understand. And it's just brought my personality out. There's a lot of ways that we all communicate. Some people communicate in written form, audio form, video, all different ways. And I found that my way to communicate that I really enjoy is through video. I'm a salesperson at heart, so I like talking. I like convincing or telling people why they should think a different way or at least see my perspective. And this kind of gives me that platform.
Me too. What is do you have sales background?
Yes. Yeah. It's mainly been in advertising and marketing.
Hmm.
So I've been in advertising and marketing through different media companies, but mainly working with small, medium, and then national accounts. I was in a national account role for an agriculture company. It was called Fastline, and they're still around today, but basically they're the auto trader of agricultural equipment. So all across the country, farmers are valuing their combines, their augers, and all that type of stuff in their tractors. And they actually buy all across the country if the value is there. And so what my job was to sell to John Deere's and Agcos and those types of companies to say, hey, let's, here's our audience of farmers that are trying to sell their equipment. Let's market to them. And this is what we know about farmers that come to our site. So I was kind of doing that. It was a really interesting background, but yeah, I've been in the marketing and advertising world, and that's kind of what probably helped me in being a consultative educator and content within the freeze drying industry, because I kind of put the pieces together of here's what I know business owners typically have a hard time spending time understanding. And then there's other people that are more advanced in that, but they still lack. There's all these different gaps that you have in a small business. And so I'm trying to find those gaps and then fulfill it through content.
What would you say is the typical gap that you're seeing around the content? What's the low hanging fruit? What's been an effective strategy as you're offering your consult? Hey, try some more of this. Where are you seeing people winning in the freeze drying marketing space?
I think it's being more open minded on what the product utility could be. We talked about applications in freeze drying. So when I consult and give people advice on ideas of getting into the industry, whether they have something already and it's just not going at the pace, I help give them understanding about how to be more efficient with their process. Because some people are still using home freeze dryers, yet they really should be looking at commercial units or looking at somebody doing that for them. Some people are stronger in marketing. They're not in running an actual food processing company. So you can still be in freeze drying and have a freeze drying company and not actually have people with a freeze dryer that you go to every single day and process your product. You can go use somebody else. But there's other people that really like that. Like they like shift work. They like getting with their hands dirty and cutting that fruit, managing people at a facility like that.
I loved doing that work. I don't do it anymore, but I mean, I was doing that work for almost 60 hours a week.
Wow.
And it's easy work. My first company was lawn mowing. I loved that because it's just like, it's almost like you could just zone out, listen to a book, and you're like, okay, I just do this same thing over and over, and I could just really be in this book, and it's great. And there's an instant gratification of like, okay, I had this mound of fruit, and now it's all processed and turned into this product. And yeah, I really enjoy and sometimes miss that piece. But I wonder on the marketing side, what type of advice are you giving people? Are you saying, hey, lean into SEO, into short form content, long form content, into what type of advice do you think is resonating, and where are people finding wins in marketing?
I'm advising people on using AI to their advantage. We were talking about this earlier today. It's really moving fast, and actually ChatGPT as a search engine is already ranked number 4 of the most used search engine, and Google's number 1. I mean, ChatGPT has only been around And really, and if you look at how quickly people are using it as an everyday source to get information, you really need to understand. I'm telling people to use AI to your advantage. So if you're looking for a freeze drying recipe using a certain ingredient, put it in ChatGPT. You don't need my help to do that. What you need my help to do is, okay, ChatGPT gave me this recipe to make. How do I store it? How do I package it? How do I source all the fruit so that I can have enough to make this recipe? So I would say using AI is super important, and also using AI to generate video content, generate posts. There's all different ways that you can use AI to advance your brand and to use that. And I would also say marketing, I think for right now is the influencer micro marketing. I think they call it seeding your product. So it's getting your hands into regular people who have a desire to market your product on their personal accounts. So you see this a lot on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, that they're marketing your somebody's product and saying, "Hey, I got this. I tried it. It tastes really good. You should buy it. Here's my TikTok shop." And they get a small cut of commission. But as a business, that's a great way for you to get 5,000 people to have your product in hand, try it. Maybe only 10% really like it, but 10% of those like it enough that they're going to give you more and more videos on their channel with those people watching. And then you get, yes, you pay them as an affiliate on commission, but they arrive at your website. If you have enough promotion, you can get their email address so that you can now direct response to them. So there's a lot of avenues.
That's a win-win. I mean, anytime that it's performance-based, that's an easy yes for me.
Mhm.
I think marketing, my experience has been that's where the most scammers live because it is all changing so quick. It's a bit of a black box for every social platform on how they're even operating, what the winning strategy is. And it's easy for these marketers to say, like, oh, just hang on or just put more money into it, or it's easy for them to just like kind of keep kicking the can and overpromise has been my experience.
Well, and think about just as a marketer who's sold marketing and advertising to a lot of different companies, I always try to bring it back to think about your actual habits. Okay. So when you see a new company like I saw today at the Boulder Farmers Market, if I'm interested in that company, I've already seen their product, but I am going to go to my mobile device and I'm going to check my most used social apps to see who these people are. So my first advice for any business starting out is you've got to get onto social media,
What are your
and
top two platforms?
I would say Instagram and TikTok for a business that's going to sell some type of product. Um, YouTube is a great utility if you're wanting to connect more people to your brand, I think, as more of like a story. But TikTok and Instagram is like in your face. That's where people want to see quick things, but it just gives you credibility and it builds trust immediately because people just want to know, does this company really exist? And if you're not on there, people just go, oh, they're just a small company that it's out of their garage. So get on social media. And then the second thing is you got to have a website that tells your story. So those are the two things.
How do you like to think about stories? As your have many of your own stories, many projects of your own, and consulting people on their stories? How do you think about stories? Is there a structure, problem, solution, call to action? Like how do you think about story?
Well, I think it starts with like, why is this relevant to like understanding why you're telling the story in the first place? Now, it is your story, but why am I telling it? Is it funny? Is it going to inspire somebody? And it inspired me. Is there some type of emotional pull to it? So, like, did something sad happen, but it birthed something new in you? Did something exciting happen, and you want that same exciting thing to happen to somebody else? So that's where my storytelling comes from. So when I do my videos on my YouTube channel, when I'm doing like how-to videos, when I'm showing people how to do something that can be freeze dried, I, I'm first telling them, hey, this is a good product to sell. because I've done it myself, and it's very low labor and this type of thing. I'm going to show you how to do this. And then I wrap up with more of the advice of, and throughout the video of like, these are the mistakes to avoid along the way. Um, that's how I go about it.
Why do you think your content has resonated with people so much? I mean, I'm hearing that you have this structure, but is there anything else there for you on where you where do you think your success is coming from in those ways?
Authenticity. I think that's important in today's society with AI coming about. Like I'm a real person that has a family, has a wife, kids, a house, has real things going on in life, and I'm not like afraid to show people like, hey, this is what the real life is like for somebody who owns a freeze drying business. You know, no, I don't have that $500,000 machine, but it would be great if I did. Or for me, I've always stuck to being more of kind of a niche side hustle business. I had 8 freeze dryers at one time, home freeze dryers. That's a lot to handle, not just for one person. I had 2 people and we had kids, everything got caught up. So I was just real with people to say, I'm okay with making a couple $1,000s a month and then doing a couple of events every single year. It makes me 25, 30K in the year. Sometimes I make more than that based on people buying wholesale, but that's okay for me because I, it's not enjoyable for me to get it into it full time. But then I've met entrepreneurs who are doing it and business owners who are doing freeze drying full time and they're killing it. And it's fun seeing your brand explode in certain pockets of the country, people seeing it on TikTok. It's fun innovating new products. And that's why those people do it. It's not it food and freeze drying is not for everybody, but it's a fun new food processing method.
I've got a lightning round that I want to get into with you as we're in the final quarter here, and it's brought to us by B Micro, talking about brands. This is my brand. I want to gift you one of our products. I've got 2 options here. The tin is a full leaf, so I mean it's not powdered. Use that as a garnish in your eggs, your salads, sandwich, smoothies. And then the glass jar is broccoli microgreens that is powdered. The blue tin is a mixture of broccoli, radish, and red cabbage. Both very similar benefits, very detoxifying. It's just, would you prefer it in a powder form or would you prefer it in the whole leaf form? You could take the top off that whole leaf one. I took the safety.
Oh yeah. Very lightweight too. I bet this is the first time I've actually seen your product. I'm gonna put it on my tongue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's very dry. There's no like I mean there's like no salt or anything like that to it. So it's not I wouldn't eat this like dry as would, but if I was gonna make a smoothie that I wanted to add more plant-based things to it, I could definitely see that. This would actually be really good for me to put on my kids' stuff. Like, so I'm thank you very much for giving me this product because I've been wanting to test out both this and powders with my kids. Like I said, I do that for my fruit, but I've never done it with the greens. And ever since us being introduced, I've been wanting to do that. So, how do you see? Like, how have you seen people use the powder who have like kids or getting kids kind of these nutrients?
So picky eaters is a very common use case. Parents buying, typically moms buying to sneak into their kids sloppy joes, mac and cheese, pizza, whatever. They use it as a raw food garnish. That's what we recommend. You don't cook it with the pizza. Once you've plated the pizza or the pasta, that's when you put it on. The powder hides even more because with the small leaves, sometimes these kids could be like, "Wait, is that a leaf?" And there's like some type of a psychological thing going on with these kids where they're like, if I even see it, I'm not interested. Get me away from it. But if they can't see it, the powder you can't see. It completely disappears. It's very light in taste. The freeze dryer sometimes can mute the taste of things a little bit. So this is already a very light, almost sweet taste that is now like there's very little to taste with, especially when you mix it into something. So, and then we're starting to go after with a lot of our marketing going after AG1. They're like the big, multi-billion dollar behemoth greens powder company. I'm sure you're familiar. They advertise with everyone from Andrew Huberman to Joe Rogan to Tim Ferriss to like mega influencers, right? And their thing is they've got 100 different ingredients sourced from all around the world, not USDA organic. Are you getting enough of any one of those ingredients? Like, are you getting enough turmeric to actually get the benefits of turmeric? My belief, and a lot out there is saying you're not getting enough. You're not getting an efficacious dose. So our thing is, it's all lab tested to be an efficacious dose for the average person. There's only 1 to 3 ingredients versus 100 ingredients. It's all USDA it's all USDA organic and regenerative organic certified, so held to the highest level, and it's all grown here in the U.S.
Well, Steven, I also, just seeing your product for the first time, I can give you just this kind of speaks to the topic of like utility and freeze drying. So, if someone's looking at making a product that can be turned into a powder like you also have people who want to buy this to then use in their own food product as well. So there's a lot of avenues for you to sell your product, not just direct to consumer, but also to companies who care about sourcing ingredients like this. And what you provide them is a shelf stable, highly dense nutrient ingredient that they don't have to go out and source only when that season is. They can get it all year round from you.
Yeah, thank you. It is a much smaller serving size. So a half a teaspoon of that powder, or maybe it's a quarter teaspoon of that powder, is equal to 2 cups of leafy greens.
Wow.
So instead of if you're trying to bring a power bar or a dog treat or your own greens powder to market, instead of being like, okay, I gotta get 2 cups of leafy greens or 2 cups of adult broccoli, with ours, you could just be half a teaspoon.
Awesome.
Nice. Thank you. Well, here we go. Rapid fire.
Okay, I'm ready.
Just a couple words. First thing you ever freeze dried.
Skittles.
Most surprising thing that freeze dries well.
Oh, ice cream.
Most disappointing freeze dried experiment.
Snickers.
Vacuum sealed bags, Mylar, glass jars. How are you storing this?
Mylar.
Favorite setting on your freeze dryer.
140 degrees.
140 degrees.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that, because I just press auto. I just auto the whole thing.
Oh, okay. So 140 degrees I've found basically isn't too hot, and it's not now I use this mainly for candies, and I found that 140 degrees makes most candies pop to the form that you can actually package instead of making it super delicate.
It makes them pop, and that's why people like freeze-dried candy, because it's all exploded.
Yeah. So anything less than 140 degrees, I found it's kind of inconsistent. Anything over that, it makes it too big, and therefore you can't package it to sell.
What's your favorite thing to freeze dry?
Fruit.
One piece of equipment you wish you'd bought sooner.
Well, there's 2 of them out there. There's one called a roller berry, then there's another company that's called from Crunchco that makes a similar type of device. But it's basically if you've seen a pizza like puncher roller that has these little spikes on pizza dough that kind of gets the air bubbles out when they put it in, that's essentially what it is. But it has a device at the very like bottom of it that drops whatever you're poking down back on your tray. So I use this for berries or fruit that has skin. It can actually explode in the freeze dryer because if you think about it, the juice is inside that skin. But if you poke the blueberry or you poke a cranberry, it actually allows that water to release more, and then it actually looks like a blueberry coming out instead of it looking exploded. So the berry tool, the berry poker tool, or they call it berry punch, Crunchco.
One freeze-dried food trend that you think's overhyped.
Skittles.
What's always in your personal snack stash?
It's got to be like some of the candies. So pineapple is one of my favorites because I don't know, it's crunchy, but it still has the juice and the pineapple taste. Versus strawberry still tastes like a strawberry, but the pineapple just seems, even when freeze dried, it just tastes like a pineapple. It's so delicious.
Does it not fully freeze dry?
It does fully freeze dry. It just takes a long time because it's very high in sugar
Yeah.
content, natural sugars. So it just takes a long time to freeze dry that. I found the best way to do freeze dried pineapple is to cut it very thin. That way it doesn't take too long to freeze dry.
So it's late night at the kitchen. You're working in the kitchen. What is a song or podcast that you're playing?
Late night, I'm typically doing any type of Avicii like songs. I love the kind of the techno and his stuff. It's not over the top electronic music, so I love Avicii. And then what was the other question?
Or a
Or a
podcast?
podcast? Yeah, I love podcasts that can help me better my business. So Think Media and Think with Sean Cannell. He has a podcast that he interviews people to make your YouTube and content better. So I love listening to that.
What's the weirdest customer request that you've gotten?
Somebody asked me to freeze dry, if I could freeze dry like human parts.
And
I don't.
obviously you can. But
You can.
I'm
I
sure
don't know why. I do. Oh, I would say somebody asked me if you can. They didn't ask me to freeze dry it, but they asked me if I can. I just told them I don't know any dead people right now. Um, but I did. There is a company called Second Life Pets. Okay, they're in the East Coast. You can look them up. They freeze dry pets. Okay, and the reason they do, I found this out, it's a more humane way to do taxidermy. Taxidermy, I didn't know this, but in taxidermy, you typically chop off the pet's head. You extract all, it's kind of a little bit PG-13, but they extract all the organs and blood and everything out of there. You're left with the skin of the animal, and then they stuff it and then put the head back on. And if you think about your pet that you're wanting to taxidermy, if you think about that process, it's probably going to put a bad taste in your mouth. The freeze drying process actually freezes
the whole thing?
The whole thing.
No way.
I don't know how they do it. I'm going to be interviewing them on my YouTube channel, Freeze Dry Business, if you want to check it out. And I'll be interviewing them soon. I'm just trying to get on their schedule. They're not going to tell me exactly how they do it.
They have to at least cut the animal in half, or this is a crazy conversation.
We will find out.
But that's wild. I don't, because there's so many things that are not freeze dryable. You spoke to the skin of fruits. You can't just put an apple in the freeze jar. It will not freeze dry. We were at the farmer's market today, and a woman that was selling eggs, she's like, oh, I have a freeze dryer, and you can't freeze dry the yolk of the egg. You have to scramble it. I've experienced that. The yolk is too strong. The freeze dryer cannot penetrate through the yolk of the egg. How can a freeze dryer? It's got to be some hardcore freeze dryer. I'm not buying it.
Okay. Well, we'll see.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's podcast, B Micro, the easiest way to sneak vegetables into any meal. Due to soil depletion, GMOs, and monocropping, Americans are not getting enough nutrients. So in 2018, I founded B Micro, the first freeze-dried microgreens company in the U.S. to help Americans get more concentrated natural nutrients into their diet. Microgreens are a phase in the plant's life when they're 14 days old and naturally the most concentrated in vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all the good things that we need. Our microgreens are grown here in the U.S. in soil in a greenhouse. They're certified USDA organic and regenerative organic. We grow, wash, and freeze dry them to extend their 1-week shelf life to over 1 year, allowing us to ship anywhere in the U.S. without the worry of spoilage. We have 2 flavors, broccoli, backed by over 2,000 studies on sulforaphane and its powerful detox benefits, and a blend of red cabbage, radish, and broccoli, the most potent detox formula we've tested, offering you the most bang for your buck. Easily sneak these microgreens in any meal. Eggs, smoothies, pizza, pasta, even your kids' mac and cheese, you can't even taste it. Use code STEVE15 to save at bmicro.farm.
One freeze-dried product you secretly love but don't sell.
Oh, corn. Freeze-dried corn. It's like a popcorn like healthy popcorn candy.
Oh, so like a
Corn.
sweet corn?
Yeah, so I take when corn's in season, literally shuck the corn, I shave it all off with a knife, and then I sprinkle it with like a ranch seasoning or like a chipotle seasoning.
Do you chop the corn up real good? Because I feel like there's so much skin around each kernel that would be challenging to freeze dry.
No, I don't really do much. I mean, I just literally cut it off the
works.
cob, and it works. But yeah.
One niche freeze-dried category that deserves more attention.
Yeah, I think that deserves more attention is dairy. Because if you think about, we talked about dairy, eggs aren't necessarily dairy, but you think about things that need to have certain kill steps so that we can then consume it. like
Per the law, I
per
don't
the
agree.
law.
I don't agree with
Correct.
that, but yeah.
So I think if we can freeze dry and have a little bit more attention on dairy products because of the great like nutrients that we get from dairy, eggs, things like that, I think it would really open up the doors in freeze drying.
Where there's a huge waste in dairy
Mhm.
is when you're making cheese, you have, you have a huge byproduct of whey. And there's local farms here that I've worked with to freeze dry their whey to see, can we make that into protein? Can we make that into, there's actually, it's a lot more involved in that. And you need to have um, an approved facility to do it. And it's quite a thing, but there's such a huge, anybody can out there has access to a commercial kitchen that I think you have to be like FDA approved or USDA approved. I forget what the approval is, but that you could process dairy in, figure out a way to capture all this waste product at the farms, because these farms are just dumping gallons and gallons of whey
Yep.
liquid down the drain. They have no use for it. And yet we buy whey protein is really popular. There's some type of an extraction that has to happen as well. I don't know the whole process to get it to where it's like you could sell at the store where it's like that good kind of whey. I think this one's heavy in fat, but it's just like, I love the upcycling or the capturing of waste and turning that into a product.
Yeah. Let me give you an idea, a random idea of freeze drying. So I stumbled across this was probably 4 years ago. I was starting to think of different companies that I could interview as a part of my channel. So it was 3 years ago. I stumbled upon a website because I typed into Google freeze dried, like unique freeze dried products. And randomly, this website came up of fish food. Now, this company had basically, you think about a bobber, okay, in like fishing, you throw it out there and it's like sitting there. But think about if it was like very fine mesh and you put a concentrated amount of food that basically fish like that would lure them in. So anyway, he had made this like really fine, if you think of like a bouillon, like chicken bouillon cube, you basically put this freeze dried cube into that mesh, like bobber looking thing, and it would attract fish in. And that's how he would like catch all these fish. And I can't find the website anymore. I've looked endlessly, but I thought that was the most innovative thing I've ever seen, to think about how you could like attract your fishing sport to
In a
eat
natural way.
in a natural way,
I
because
love that.
because the dried bouillon cube dissolves because it's all dried out, so it just kind of like naturally seeps out of that mesh thing, drawing the fish in.
You
And then
remember
you're
any
hooking
of
it
the
in.
ingredients that were in it?
No, one was like algae, and like just like a byproduct of different types of like microorganisms that live in the water.
If somebody has a budget of $10,000 and they want to get into start a freeze drying business, how would you advise them to spend that first $10,000?
If they're going to commit to this, I'd first get yourself a home freeze dryer. There's a lot more out there than just Harvest Right that are out there nowadays.
And you can get used ones.
You can get used ones. So about half of your $10,000 is going to go towards getting your setup for your freeze dryer.
Which is probably 2 freeze dryers for 5,000.
Yeah, I'd probably say you could get 2 large freeze dryers from Harvest Right for 3,000 each. Then what I would probably do is I take a look and see what is being sold the most of in like online, and then look at ways that you can make either your packaging better or you can make it more high quality. So if there's like freeze dried candy has become a huge trend. And I don't think it's a fad. I just think there's a lot of people doing it because it doesn't take very much time to freeze dry. But I would dabble in different avenues. So freeze dry your fruit, freeze dry vegetables, freeze dry some meals, freeze dry protein, freeze dry your candy, and freeze dry things so you get a really good understanding of what freeze drying is, and then start experimenting with what you like actually making. Because if you don't like making and cutting up fruit, but you enjoy the candy side, just focus on doing candy. And then if you really want to make a business out of it, I would start experimenting on how you can make your own candy, because you can make your own hard candy. It just takes time to learn how to do that. You can go buy wholesale bulk candy from somebody else, and you can then make that. So I would just say that's kind of the steps that I would take.
Thank you, David. Anything else that you want to share with the people?
No.
Let everybody know where they can find you and enjoy more of your content.
Yeah, you can literally type into Google anywhere, type in freeze-dried business, or I want to start a freeze-drying business, and you'll see some of my videos, and you'll see my YouTube channel. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of those as the freeze-dried business, and you can be educated on the freeze-drying industry.
Great. And then look for me on your podcast here coming soon as well.
Yes, looking forward to that. So yeah, check
That's
out.
up next.
Yeah. Good talking to you.
Thanks, David.
Yeah.
Okay. See you, everybody.